Now today, as we talk about why codes, why are we interested in focusing on codes, why do they matter to us? There's really critical reasons, and congratulations to you all for coming here, because codes are an important element in so many areas. The 14-odd I codes, the International Energy Construction Code, critical. It's a critical tool, perfect information, but we need knowledge and wisdom to really leverage it, right? So let's talk a bit. This slide, in a sense, brings us back to one of the reasons why we have codes. This is the Arab Oil Embargo, 1973. Ultimately, that was the beginning of our human recognition, at least in modern history, of the importance of energy to our lives and to society, to our ability to recreate and work and produce and have a good, thriving economy. We started to gather information, because that was a shocking thing. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, we're worried about our wallets and having to stay in line to buy gasoline. Well, gosh, how do we use energy in this society? And so many of us felt for so long that transportation was the key user of energy in our society, whereas in fact it's buildings. Buildings, 39–40% of all the energy consumed in our society. 72% or thereabouts, 3/4 of the electricity, about 40% of the primary energy. So it's important. And all of us in this room are engaged in the building enterprise in some way, shape, or form. So it's important for us to focus on this. We look at that, we see 39% roughly in buildings. Let's break it down a little more. We see now it's about evenly split somewhat between residential and commercial buildings. The 5 million odd commercial buildings, and a greatly larger number, maybe 75 million residential. But they're about equal in the amount of energy that they use. 40% in that range, 39–40%. In the state of Arizona, it's a little bit different. Makes sense. It's a different mix of transportation, industry, buildings, all of those aspects. So that adds up to around 52%. Then climate, too. Climate has impact, certainly. In 2030, the world's going to consume 60% more energy than today. And a majority of that's going to be in buildings. And what are we going to do about it? One of the things we're going to do is we're going to learn about the IECC. We're going to do what we can to implement that, but that's just information. We want to leverage the knowledge of the codes, the knowledge of the market, the knowledge of ways that we can effectively meet the code, and then maybe wisdom, where we can basically beat the code 12 ways till Sunday. And maybe some of you will become expert at this in your own business. Because if you design your own business to just meet the code, then what you've done is you've agreed to a business model where you will build the worst buildings you can legally build. Now think about that. If you do something to code, it's the worst that you can legally do. You can't do worse because it's against the law. That's the wall that we're dealing with. Now, where that wall is set is critically important. It should not be very easy to meet, but it should not be too difficult to meet. That's why designing codes is a very difficult thing to do. That's why so many intelligent people in this country have engaged in this effort, and why it keeps improving. So we look at this. We have problems. We have issues. We have to develop new ways of conserving energy. We also need to develop or improve new ways of generating energy. So what can each of us do about this? Well, first, it's what I call the CEM tattoo that we all get is when we become certified energy managers or we focus on energy. If it's measured and reported, it can be managed and improved. The way that we deal with many aspects of our lives, our investments. We evaluate Morningstar to see how they will perform before we make our investments. Our kids, their test scores, we evaluate those and determine if there are areas, subjects where we need to improve. If we don't have these aspects, then it's very difficult to move from A to B. So we recognize that that's important. And data is the key. Data is absolutely the key. But it's not enough. It has to be managed and manipulated. 10,000 stimuli that we can focus on at any given moment, but there's only about 10 of them that we choose to because our minds can't handle much more than that. Now, which ones we choose to focus on are extremely important in our lives. What if, when we got up in the morning, we chose not to focus on putting on pants? Would that be a positive thing if you were leaving the house? Probably not. So we identify which data, which information, how are we going to chart our course through our lives? We see data is the key. But there is a hierarchy of knowledge, and no offense to Brent Spiner, but data is the lowest level. The data itself, or himself, isn't much without other elements engaged. Information. We need to be able to turn the data into information and take that information and then learn to, in a sense, manipulate it for knowledge. Learn best practices. And then wisdom. Don't juggle over the bed. We need to develop the wisdom to operate properly. Now let's look at it with some words attached. Data, energy products, technologies, strategies, bills, and energy conservation measure costs. Sure. Discrete elements. What are the energy bills? So many people who operate buildings just pay the bills because, well, it's just the way it is. I've got so many other things on my mind, I don't have time to manage the energy. No one else really cares about it, so I'm just going to pay it. That's just data. Information. Understanding market and climate conditions. You don't leave the doors open in the middle of the summer. That's good information. Codes and standards. Information. It's understanding what the codes and standards are. It's like the instructions to juggling. Knowledge. Ways to meet market needs, codes, and standards. Okay, how do I do the thing that I do and hopefully do it so well so that I can meet building codes, and energy standards as I am required to do? Wisdom. In the words of Wayne Gretzky when he used to slap the puck, skate to where the puck's going, not where it's been. Right, that's wisdom. And ways to exceed market needs, codes, and standards more effectively is truly wisdom. So that's why it's important to think through that hierarchy. Because the businesses that are able to focus and understand the basic rudiments of business, to understand the codes and know how to meet the codes or beat the codes and do it better than someone else, that's the competitive spirit. And that's what makes a business thrive and survive.